Welcome to the Bayside Students Podcast.
Let's go.
My name is Jared.
My name is Karston.
We're here, and we got a special guest. I'm going to let Karston introduce him in a second. But today we're talking about great games. So we brought in the Mallard himself, Mr. Games.
Wow, what an honor.
He actually created games.
He did.
Games.
I did, man.
Yeah.
I've been around that long.
Les Christie tries to claim games. I'm sorry.
Wow.
No.
They don't know Colton Tucker, baby. Colton, tell me about yourself, Colton. Who are you?
Let's go. My name is Colton. I work at Bayside Church.
Heyo.
And I oversee our students at the Granite Bay campus. Been here 12 years now.
Wow, he's a legend.
12 years, man. So
That's when Bayside saved you from Blockbuster
That's
Video.
right, man. I was down in the dumps, man. But now I'm here. I got a wife and 2 kids. Got one more on the way. 3 girls.
Let's go.
Man. 3 girls.
Girl Dad. One of my books.
Girl Dad.
Shout out Todd. He wrote Girl Dad. You should get it, pick it up. Great guy.
Good.
Great author. Actually, I didn't read it because I'm not. I got boys too, but
man, dude.
just check it out. Shout out to Todd out there. In
Diversify yourself, bro.
Diversify.
Come on, man.
I should read it. I got
2 girls. Yeah,
I got 2 girls. Yeah. I didn't think about this before, but did you take a Les Christie class at Jessup?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Who's Les
I
Christie?
didn't do ministry.
Oh,
I did
gosh.
business.
Bro, how can we should have done some prep before this.
Man.
You don't know who Les Christie is.
I like your guys' dynamic is nice because you're like,
He knows
totally
everything.
outdate yourself on everything, and then
I don't know anything.
just don't know nothing.
He calls me an idiot every time.
You guys have a nice little yin yang thing going on.
Your dad would be so disappointed right now. He is down in SoCal being like, how do you not know who I failed you as a father? If you guys don't know this, Carson's dad is a youth legend.
Eric with a K.
Eric with the K.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
DYM author as well. Shout out DYM. We're waiting for you to sponsor our podcast, but I'll talk to Doug later. But here's the thing. Les Christie is the guy who wrote the games book. So 90s, 2000s, you went to youth specialties, you went to everything. Les Christie was doing some kind of breakout with games. He worked at William Jessup for a couple decades, right?
Yeah.
And had multiple games, books, classes. The dude, I mean, he was speaking at Bayside for a while. I remember coming here, and he was like Bob Goff before Bob Goff. Just like, whoa, hey, whoa,
He's a diplomat.
Oh,
let's shoot something across the room. Let's throw a child. It was like,
let's go.
Epic games.
So fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
But before we jump into, we got a couple things of how to make games great, but why are games, would you guys say, are important to students ministry? It's something we all do, but I think not understanding why they're important, it kind of just we can just go through the mundane, but if we really understand what the importance of games are, it can make a huge difference to youth ministry and youth culture. Yeah. So what is the importance of games? What would you guys say?
It's to both of us.
It's both of you. Probably to Mallard first.
Yeah. Well, I think I think the beautiful part about it is games are the thing that invites students into a space that maybe they're not comfortable being, right?
Absolutely.
When we think about this past Tuesday night of youth ministry, there's kids all over the room that just have no affiliation with church or just don't know what church is all about and don't know, man, what are we going to be wearing? We're going to be wearing robes or we're going to be singing hymns. What is church, right? Because we have kids all the time that are stepping into youth groups that haven't stepped a foot in church in years, right? And games are the very thing that when they walk through the door, it allows them to let their guard down and say, man, this place is cool. Yeah. This place is fun. It's an invitation to worship. It's an invitation to the message without formally asking, right? We're going to say, hey, we're going to throw some eggs around the room. We're going to throw some spheres around the room, right?
Yeah.
Be careful.
Welcome to the
saying
2000s.
there, right? We're going to be tying someone up, doing something on stage, LED wall, loud scream, all that, whatever it is, man.
Tortilla slap.
Tortilla slap, man.
Great game. Buy on DYM today.
All that type of stuff.
Or look it up on TikTok.
State that cheese.
State that
cheese, man.
Plug all my games.
So all these games are an invitation for your kids to come into a space where just maybe they're not comfortable with, and they could say, this place is not what I expected church to be. And we go, hey, we're normal people that love to have fun. Church is a place that we love to have fun.
Absolutely. I remember growing up in church, and in my middle school ministry, it was a very small church, and there was only 12 of us. Tom Saylor was running it, just this old dude, loved Jesus, loved kids, but we never played games. And I thought church was boring. I hated it. And I remember growing up, and I remember as I got into high school, I had a youth pastor that was all about games, and it really changed my perspective of what church was. And so when I remember I want to make church fun. As a youth pastor, I want to make church fun, whether you love Jesus or hate Jesus, whether you do like worship or don't like worship. Mm-hmm. But if you can just come for the fun, hopefully the Holy Spirit will move in and through at some point and reach you where you're at. Shane Davidson, head of Thrive College, says this all the time. It takes kids from this, and if you're just listening to this, it's get your arms crossed. You're coming in kind of resistant, and it takes your arms and it just like opens them.
Yeah, drops
so
them.
It just drops them, And even like what I love too is it can do other things too. It can create community, right? If you're playing like a game where you're running around, it can make unsung heroes inside jokes.
Yeah.
Last night we're playing this stupid game we got off TikTok where it's like the sticky hands and they're trying to get a quarter off the table. And so we did guys versus girls and we invited leaders into it to try and like make it fun. And the first round, the guy student won. Second round, the girl leader won.
Oh, yep.
And so we picked this like little 6th grade girl and this boy to do the last round, and the 6th grade girl wins it. Like sticks the sticky hand on the quarter, rips it off the table.
Go.
And bro, the room erupts.
Yep.
These girls are picking up this girl, and it's like this girl who was like honestly a kind of a fringe student. I don't even know what she was. Is now like being carried away triumphantly. And so I think like it really creates a safety and it really creates a welcoming environment, like having a good game and a good game culture in your youth ministry.
100%.
Yeah, and I think it'll pay dividends in the future because if a student, how I think about it is if a student can walk in and they did not pay, especially middle school ministry, high school ministry as well, a student walks in, they don't pay attention to anything, but they remember at the end of the night, I had a fun time. Like I just remember that thing. There was someone was crazy. Somebody was throwing a basketball, made it all the way across the hoop, like across the room.
Yeah.
If they can have that and they remember 5 years down the road, church was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I can actually maybe go here to enjoy my life a little bit when life is hard at home. It'll pay dividends for the future too.
Yeah, we talk about that, right? Do kids have a positive view of the church, right? That the conception is they look at the church and say it's against this, it's not for this, it's all these things. But if you come to a space where kids have fun, have a memorable experience, did it create a positive view of the church for them? They say, man, I would love to come back. We talk about this on our team all the time, is what are the moments that you've created within your program? I think games are a big part of this, that the next day, a kid is at the lunch table talking about church without talking about church, right?
Yeah,
so we've done this before in our middle school ministry, a chocolate slip and slide, right? I sat there at the end of that slip and slide and I watched 45 to 75 kids have their phones out that are filming this action. You're doing something memorable that a kid is naturally going to pull out their phone, share it on their social media or whatever, or talk about it the next day at school. And last night, they're witnessing about church without witnessing about church.
Absolutely.
I think that's the beautiful part.
What's the most?
How do you make a memorable moment that they're thinking about the next day?
Yeah, I'm getting old, and we talked about this. We've talked about this before. I'm old, okay, and so I'm getting to the point where I have a son coming into middle school, and I have friends who have kids in middle school and high school from when I was a kid. Okay,
that's next level.
That's next level. And what's funny is I was talking to this girl from high school who came to church every once in a while. She actually got pregnant in high school, so her kid's now a sophomore in high school. But she was talking about getting her kid plugged into church because she remembers when my sisters and I had brought her and her brother to church that they had fun. And she was like, my son doesn't really have that many friends or good connections. But I just remember like, I had a lot of fun when I went.
Yep.
And I remember we played some like stupid game where I chugged milk and I ended up throwing it up. Don't do that game. But it was like she remembered this. And it's now like 16, 17 years later that her kid's in high school. It's like, hey, I want my kid to have that type of experience.
It's awesome.
And I think if you're doing games well, who knows the eternal effects this could have. Like God can use anything, and God can use your silly, crazy, funny games.
Right.
And I think if we actually like understand that and have like a good theology of like why games are a part of what we do and not just because we've always done it, I think we can take it to that next level and make it great.
Yeah. And I think the tendency too is for high school is to be afraid to not play games, right? Because like high schoolers don't love to have fun or they don't want to do these things. It's just a middle school specific thing. But like, if you're a high school pastor or whatever, right, it should be all the more to let those guards down and find that. And it's a challenge for us to make better games, right?
Absolutely.
Do the better thing, right? Do excellent. Maybe, whatever, chugging the milk is not the right strategy for a high school student, right? They don't want to get messy. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to have that on social media, right? All those type of things. So we've got to do a better job maybe making better games that are more engaging for high school students.
Absolutely. And I think, too, is like make games specific to your youth ministry, man. Like I remember my last church, like we were having a real struggle with trying to get games. Like we got a couple Thrive students who were in my youth ministry. And I remember just asking, like Cody Pruis and Lisette Cornelius are here now interning at Bayside. And I had this group of students we got to make games, so we got to do something. And one of our interns, her name was Simone, was like, hey, let's do this prank war. Okay. Now I know when I went to my boss, I couldn't say, hey, we're going to do a prank war, but we called it the gotcha games. And what we did is like, we would have the small groups try to like prank the other leader's house. So like we would Flamingo's house. One day, bro, no joke. One day I show up on a Saturday and there was a petting zoo in my front yard. Like,
wow,
a petting zoo.
Wow,
it was legendary. Shout out Andrew Bronner and that whole crew. But it was just like but you got to think outside the box,
right?
Creatively. Like I had a hole in the very first church I worked in. They used to have a ducking system that went through our middle school room, and there was just a big hole above our stage. So we played this game called The Hole in the Wall. And we would throw random things through the hole, and however many times you could do it.
That's great.
But it was one of those things where it's like for high school, middle school, like games are such, even in college ministry, games are a big part of it. But like you got to make it age appropriate, you got to make it fun. But like it really creates a great space. But it's like don't divert from it, because high school kids want to have fun.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah, but you got to make it to where like you invite them in, whether it's trivia on the screen or it's some type of competition. I feel like our high school team kills it here. Yeah, I know Carson's killing it, and Auburn with games.
Yeah, it's just a reminder too that high schoolers face so much pressure in life, and they're filled up with so much SAT scores and college and all these things. And adulting is now when you are a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
And to me, especially in high school, how do you create a game and atmosphere where high school students can be kids again?
Absolutely.
You know, and they let down that guard and the pressures of life and the anxiety and the worries and all those type of things, and get to a space where say, hey man, you're just a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like we're gonna have you're gonna be in college very soon, but also let's have some fun, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And if you disagree, go to Hume. Go to summer camp.
Go have a great time.
Yeah. Look at summer camp. The way the high school kids are competing. It's like it's legendary. Like when we go to middle school camp here at Bayside, our middle school rec is cool. But then you go to high school camp and you're like, it's nuts, bro. I'm like the competitive nature, and they're like they're decked out, they're going for it. Like Tuesday night, high school did cowboy like here, like, and it
Western
was like Western theme, and I was just like the investment into it, because like our team has done such a good job. Shout out to those guys and gals. Like the students are sold into it, but it starts with building that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something that I think I've seen at both Granite Bay Middle School, Granite Bay High School that you guys have done really well is going on to like Instagram or TikTok and figuring out what the current trend is or something and doing a game out of that.
Yeah.
Like the first time I came to Granite Bay High School group as an intern, they were doing the tortilla slap game, and that was the biggest thing on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then everybody's posting videos like, we're doing this is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of friends hanging outside each other with tortillas, and then afterwards we're worshiping together. It's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was great. It's just how do you take elements, right, they see, and so for those of you, we just bought tortillas for everybody in the room, right?
Yeah.
And so there's 400 tortillas in the room where people are just slapping each other with tortillas, right? And it's just a go back and forth thing. But again, how do you elevate maybe something you see on social media that may feel small, but how do you take it to the next level?
It's 100%. And I think, and I like what you just said, TikTok, I always pride myself on being an early adapter. Like Craig Rousseau talks about this all the time. Like sometimes the church can be hesitant. Oh, we don't want to add drums. We don't want to do this. But for me, it's like, well, I'm going to limit myself on TikTok, yes, and whatever. Who knows if it'll be here in a few years. But I want to be someone who's like trying to keep up with the trends, because who's that student I'm trying to reach? I'm not worried about my church kids coming and having fun and coming to church. No.
Right.
They'll be here every week because they love Jesus.
Yep.
It's the kid who just don't love Jesus that I'm really putting the effort into when it comes to games that I'm trying to reach. So tortilla slaps, great example. Like we've done that so many times. Also, maybe like buy your facility team's pizza that night, because there was tortillas everywhere. Right. You know what I mean? But it's those types of things of like the sticky hand game. I got that from TikTok because I just saw it on there. And it's like, these are things I'm like proactively searching out, or I'll have my intern will send me a video like, hey, we got to try this. We got to do this. It's okay to fail too. There's plenty of games
100%.
that like
they're going to flop.
done. Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? Also, kids love seeing you get tortured.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like one thing I love in high school ministry, it's really true, is like kids don't want to be the joke. Like they don't want to be the ones made fun of. So a lot of times when I'll structure a game, I'll make myself like the
target.
Yeah. So like I'll represent. So we did a game, tortilla slap in middle school, where like the students answered the questions, but if they got it wrong, the leader got slapped with the tortilla.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like
wrong on purpose.
if they got the question wrong, I had to eat and do the cinnamon challenge.
Right.
Because I don't mind making myself look dumb, because I understand it's like, I'm not going to embarrass this child where they never want to come back and they're forever shamed. But also at the end of the day, like it's still going to be a memorable experience
100%.
where we're creating a space where they can like have fun, thrive, and then be like posting it, sharing it. Look at this youth pastor vomiting from the cinnamon challenge, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Tug, I have a couple questions, some practical, and then just to get your wisdom. Number one, I've heard people do games at different times. Is there a time of the night, beginning, middle, end, that we should do a game? Is it like after the message, before the message? When would you do it?
That's a good question. I think, well, it's probably has a lot to do with your context of ministry, right? Everyone's ministry looks a little different. Some ministries are combining in worship settings, and then you got to split for the messages, or you're coming together for the structured part. But I would say as much as you can, those two elements, right, I think always, and especially when it comes to games, is your transition to these things matter, right? And so how you're structuring the night. And so when you guys transition to a moment of spiritual, hey, we're going to head into a time of worship, and we're going to head into a message, you probably don't want to sandwich a game, tortilla slap right after you guys have just got done singing Oceans and All Hail King Jesus, and then all of a sudden, let's do tortilla slap, and then, hey, here's Karston, he's going to preach the message, right? Let's do it, man, let's talk. That's probably not a great segue and transition. It doesn't set up your worship team well, doesn't set up your leaders well, it doesn't set up your preaching well. And so how are you setting these things up well? And we did this all the time in middle school. We had nights of emphasis within our structure. So we broke our month into 4 different things: a big game night, a big food night, which basically just meant free food. Emphasis, a small group night. So the emphasis would be on small groups where they're competing, doing something memorable or something along the lines, or then in big competition night. So not always were we like, hey, let's emphasize a game is necessarily have to be every time. Maybe sometimes let's not do a game, do extended worship. Let's sometimes do a game where it's 25 minutes long, and it takes the majority of that, and it transitions. We slow it down from there. But so it probably has a lot to do, one, with your context of ministry, but I would say that's something you probably want to open up with, right? Because whether you start with preaching, right? Kids are always going to be showing up late, coming from football practice, and you probably want that space during the game more than anything else, rather than you stand on stage preaching, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Is there a way to properly, in my experience, we play a game and then we go into like announcements, or maybe we do announcements game, hop into worship, and I feel like every time, middle school and high school, can be hard to get them to calm down. What's the best way to get them to calm down from a game?
Yeah, no, it's great. We've been talking about this recently, because our middle school ministry is just it's always crazy, right? Chaos. It's never going to have a perfect scenario for that, but we've just talked about how do we just, like, that's where you as the pastor need to own that moment to slow and transition and lead, especially middle school students. You're leading them to the next moment, right? And so when it comes to announcements, and even a lot of times we've done this where announcements are filled with a game. You do something with a small game within announcements to emphasize the announcement, right? We have relationships retreat coming up, so we're going to do pickup lines. Let's go. We got 5 people on this day, right? That's emphasis of that is, hey, we got a big event, so let's attach to something engaging to that event, so it's not just wah, 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 wah on the announcements. But to transition that moment, as we've talked about this, is how do you slow that down? You cut the music, you stand on stage, you invite the kids up. You know they're going to rush the stage. We know that's going to happen. You cannot prevent the rush. They're going to come. You bring them up the stage, let them get all settled in and say, hey, guys, let's slow down for a second. Let's everyone take a deep breath. Right? Hey, you've had a long week. You've had soccer. You've had basketball. You've had football. You've had all these things. But what would it look like right now to come and meet in the presence of God, right? And so you have to lead that moment. You can't expect the worship leader to do it, the worship song to do it, right? And that's probably too a bit of that is like, what is the first worship song up, right? Don't slow them down and get them all like spiritual and serious, and all of a sudden, da 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 da, right? Like then you just wasted 5 minutes of your time.
That's what we did last night, right?
Your life. Like, that's probably not the best strategy.
We went straight from a game last night to we have a guitar and 2 voices and we're just singing Oceans. It's like, I don't know how to start.
No, I mean, I feel like I'm being like picked on right now, because last night that's what I did, and we went to Phenomenon. We came from a hyped game, hype giveaway, hype this, and then it's like I had to because I honestly I struggle with worship, and that's a whole nother segment for another time. But I'm not the raise your hands, but so I got up and I was like, hey guys, this is a time, because we're trying to our game culture is great.
Yeah.
Our worship culture needs help right now. And so I was like, hey guys, this is what worship is.
Yep.
This is why we do this. And I took 5 minutes to set it up to get it in that space, because it is tough. Like, if you're building a great game culture, it's like these things, you every season you work on something. And I know we're getting a little off topic of going into the worship, but it's a part of that, having a good transition. Even if let's say your game culture sucks. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe explaining what games are before you do games, or why you're doing it, or what they're winning. That's a big thing too. And just to kind of change back to games, make sure they know what they're competing for.
Right.
Is it candy? Is it a giveaway? Is it this? Because and then make sure you choose kids that are going to be excited for that winning.
100%.
Because you have to set up the game as much as you have to set up worship and those other things.
Yeah.
Hey, tonight we're playing for a bag full of candy.
Yeah.
And then so those 8th grade girls are going to be oh, candy, whatever. But that 6th grade boy is going to be like,
right.
And so I'm going to pick that 6th grade boy, because that's probably going to be the most entertaining, funny thing. You know what I mean? Over the 8th grade girl who doesn't want to.
Sure.
And I think so setting up whatever is next is probably going to be the biggest win for you.
Right.
It's March. I'm still using candy from Halloween. So
hey, go for it, bro.
Man, try or treat.
Yeah.
Colton, so you love games. If you could do anything, you'd be the game maker for Survivor.
I do love games, man.
You love games.
I do.
To give us just, a little, something to write down. If anybody's going to take away anything, what is 3 things that will make a great game?
Yeah. I do love games. I'm passionate about it. I can't stand. I think the worst feeling in the world is being told hey, we're going to run this game. You got to do this game, and then I know I'm about to help on stage and the game's trash. I can't stand that. That's the worst feeling. A flopped game is the worst, right? So 3 things that I'd say. Number 1, because we're pastors, right? So everything has alliteration. Number 1 is this tension, right? Mm-hmm. So the number 1 responsibility that you have as a game host is, what is the tension? When you watch a television show, when you watch a movie, everything, you need to watch more movies. Everything has a tension, right? And so The Dark Knight, which Karston has not seen.
Please comment below if you've seen The Dark Knight.
Come on, man. What are we doing?
Yeah, we're going to give out some merch to those who can comment that they've seen it, and then we'll pray for those who have not seen it.
The Office, it's a 5 out of 10. It's garbage. All right, keep going.
Anyway, the Joker, right, is the biggest tension of it all, right? You are so engaged, so enthralled. So what is the tension of when a student comes in and number one, plays the game, but 2 is watching the game, right?
Absolutely.
So when we are sitting on stage, it's you can do games of all different variations, but if you're doing a stage game, one of the best things that you need to think through is, what is the audience, the student that's sitting in the seats, what are they getting out of this? Mm-hmm. What is the tension for them, right? Yeah. Is it embarrassment for the kid or pastor on stage?
Yeah.
Is it a prize for them as they sit there? Yeah. How are you engaging them? Because if you sit on stage and you run a game with another pastor or intern, and it's just 2 of you on the stage and the 4 of you are just running the game together and no one's engaged,
Absolutely.
We've missed it, right? We have not invited them to drop their arms,
Absolutely.
right? So for them, what is the tension? So I love to say you have to have some sort of incentive involved in that.
For everybody.
For everybody, right? When we did our Unleash conference recently, and they did Super Smash Bros. On the LED screens. 4 kids on stage, which is great, right? Yeah. It's fun, it's engaging. But as an audience, what is it? What? There's nothing involved for them, right? I don't know any of the kids on stage. And so it's just a simple tweak sometimes is to go, hey, before y'all run that game, this is what you're going to do. Hey, this is Karston. Yeah. He's playing as Link. Guess what? This whole section, you guys are rooting for Link, right?
And Link wins.
You're all going crazy, right?
Yeah,
you all. So what is the incentive for them, right? It's Dippin' Dots for them. It's a $5 gift card. It's a draw. It's a raffle for that someone in that entire section, right?
Yeah.
Like at a sporting event. So what is the tension that's involved there? And so I'd say this too is when it comes to the tension, that games at camp or the games that you do in these big moments don't always work in the mundane ministries, right? The tension at camp is we're competing to win a overall group prize. And sometimes we've done this before. We're like, bro, that game killed at camp.
Yeah.
We got to do it on Wednesday night, right? Yeah. And it doesn't work as well, right? You do Kajabi at camp. It is the most intense, high-pressured moment. Yeah. You do it on a Wednesday night, it's good.
Yeah.
It ain't like it is at camp, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a different incentive involved into it. So there's a different tension involved in it. So is there a prize, the entertainment piece? But I would say the biggest mistake with this that we often make as youth pastors is forcing energy.
Absolutely.
If the game does not create energy on its own, the game's not good enough.
Absolutely.
If the game itself, if I explain the game, we rip, boom, here's the game, and kids aren't on the edge of their seats, the game's not good enough, right? If you're on stage as a youth pastor and you're controlling it and you're the hype and you're up, you're down, you're just the monkey, the entertainment, it's not good enough, right? And so there has to be some sort of tension involved, right? So,
absolutely.
So I'd say tension. Number 2 is this, tempo. I'd say, like, when it comes to your games, kids they're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and these things are fast, bro.
Yeah.
And so when you are controlling a game, how is the tempo of it, right? When we talked about this, going to worship, you lose people in transitions, in your messages, in how you operate games, all this stuff, and especially in how you operate games. And so that means inviting contestants on the stage. They're already on stage, or they're on the side of the stage. If you're sitting there going, hey, so-and-so, come on up, right? That's dead air. Ray talks about this a lot in his sermons. You don't want dead air in the room. You're trying to create that snowball effect that creates momentum for the game. So what's the tempo, right? When it comes to the music, is these things cued? When every youth minister, the impossible shot. Yeah. It's time for the impossible shot, right? Like, you're creating tempo, boom, on the screen, the impossible shot slide comes up. Music inserted right in that moment, right? And so it's controlling these things with the other people around you, with the production team. Yeah. Hey, you're going to flux the music right here. You're going to jack it up. When someone gets an answer right, boom, we have sound effects. All these things are tempo to the game that keep the game going, that keep people on the edge of their seats. So, but I'd say the critical mistake with that is when you don't run it through with someone and you're asking for things on stage. Yeah. And you're going, bro, can you change the song? Yeah. Or can you put this song on? Yeah. Or can I get a table up here? Or again, that's dead air involved into the tempo. And the last thing I would say is tension, tempo. And the last thing I'd say is technicalities. Absolutely, right? Yeah. When it comes to the rules of a game, everybody wants to win, right? Every small group leader wants to win. They look better in their students' eyes. Yeah. But if the rules are not dialed, somebody will find a loophole. You're dealing with students that at the end of the day, well, like, what are the rules, right? Who cares, right? You didn't say I couldn't stand on a chair. You didn't say I couldn't stand on the table. You didn't say I could climb on his shoulders, right? All these type of things. Right. The technicalities are important. So a big question is, do your leaders know the rules? Yeah. Do you know the rules? I think a perfect example of this is you watch Jimmy Fallon, you watch Ellen, all these shows, all games are explained in 15 seconds or less. Easy, yeah. 15 seconds max. If you can't explain a game clear and concise with one slide, 5 bullet points or less to a 6th grade boy, it's too confusing. Yeah. The game is too confusing. If it's too confusing, people will not participate. Your game will flop. It won't be engaging. It won't be fun because there is no momentum. It's 100%. Dead air, right? So, and I'd say the big mistake with that is you haven't fully talked it through with someone. Yeah. Karston, let me explain this game to you. And you get back to me and say, man, how do they do that? Or how do they do that? Or where do they stand? Or what's the rules to that again? Or how do they know they can put that in that bucket, right? All those rules are important. So I'd say those 3 things. Yeah, and I think what's so crazy, I was listening to the Craig Rochelle podcast this week, and it's him and Stephen Furtick, right? And Stephen Furtick was talking about how he prepares sermons, all that stuff. And the dude's like a lyrical and creative genius, man. You know what I mean? He's such a great communicator. And what I thought was so fascinating is, like, sometimes you bring ideas to the table and you share them before they're ready yet. That's right. And he's talking about this idea about how do you get ideas out there? And I think with the game, man, I struggle with this all the time. Like, I'm a creative. So, like, I love games. Maybe not to the extent of you, like, bro, you're passionate right now. I was just like, I'm juiced. I'm like, hey, we're redoing our game, baby. I'm like, about text Vince. I'm like, bro, we got to get our games on point, bro. And so, but it's one of those things where it's like, you gotta practice it. You gotta run it. You know what I mean? Yep. And I think so often we get lazy in youth ministry, and we're just like, we're just gonna do this. Yep. We're just gonna mail it in. We've done this so many times, and then so you get someone up on the stage, and there's nothing worse than man, like, is like when you go, like, I've spoke at churches before and stuff, and you see what could be a great game, right? And they're just missing it. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And I think like that, like you're talking about tempo, right? Like the pace of what it is. We play a game here called List 5 all the time. Yep. Love List 5. Yep. Because you know what List 5 does? It involves everyone, every table playing, coming up with 5 things, and you're giving them like it's the first 5 tables up, bro. So as soon as you say that category, they're going. List 5 football teams, it's just like, and it's like boom, 1, and it's 2, chaos, 3, and it's chaos, but controlled. And the game's simple. You're listing 5 things, and the first 5 tables to get up their boards get points, and that's it. And so it's like, those things make such a great
game.
Yep.
And here's the thing too is, man, like having them pre-selected, like you said, having these people that they understand the rules. We always in our leader meetings before we do youth group, we explain the games.
Yep.
Because
smart,
especially if you're middle schoolers, and if you're a middle schooler watching this, please forgive me, but middle schoolers are dumb. Like I've been working with middle schools for 16 years. They're not the sharpest tools. 8th grade girls, you're pretty smart. 6th grade boys, you're struggling, okay? So they're not going to understand the rules. And then you're going to get that kid on stage who's like, oh, I thought, I understood how to play the game, but I don't. So you got to make it so simple that a 6th grade boy can just get up and rip it. You know what I mean? And it's not confusing. So having leaders understand it, and if the leaders don't get it, man, it's going to flop.
Yeah, 100%.
Attention, tempo, technicalities.
Alliteration.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
That's fire.
Hey, and if you've ever struggled with technicalities, man, get yourself a Corey Branson.
Yes.
Ask my friend Evan how it went at summer camp.
They will break the rules, bro.
Absolutely. Scott Vaughn.
Yes.
I mean, the Furs is, like, that's my last name, Furs. We have a saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
There we go.
My wife is a leader in middle school ministry. It is the best and worst curse because she's not cheating. She just didn't say, man. You didn't say it, Jared. You didn't say I couldn't put, like, we played a game where it was like, it's like table treasure hunt, okay? And it's, you got to do something, get a student to touch the ceiling. I look, and my wife's not tall, okay? She's like 5'2".
Yeah.
She's got, she's strong, though. She's got a middle school girl on her shoulders, standing up, and I'm just like, that is not what I wanted.
That's not what you wanted.
But I didn't explain the rules.
That's right.
What did you want?
Everyone on the ground.
Everyone.
Maybe. I don't know. This is the rule with that. Common sense is thrown out.
Yes.
If you haven't explained it, it doesn't exist.
And if you're giving out Sour Patch, bro, kids will murder.
Yeah.
Go
in for it, man. Incentive, baby.
Yeah. But that's gold, man. That's good, man. Karston, any last questions you got before we wrap this up?
I think I would like to know your favorite color.
Oh, wow.
Favorite color.
Jeez, that was not as good as last question.
I don't think about it like we used to when we were kids, right?
No.
But I always just say blue, but I could care less. Do you guys like look at colors and go, that's a dope color?
No, but I do have a question for you. Just off the top of your head, your absolute favorite game you've ever done in a way that you can explain it.
For a youth,
the
absolute
absolute best game
game
you've ever done.
Sheesh. Favorite youth group game that I've ever done. Man, I think one that's very memorable is going back, and it's hard to pull this off. What we did right at the Unleash conference, right, of just like hanging people from the rafters, right? Like
bet your youth pastor.
Can you bet your youth pastor, right? Like what I loved about it is it's elevating the leader.
Absolutely.
I love a game that elevates the leaders to like be the hero or anything that engages the small group to compete together.
Yeah.
Just doing a classic riff off where every small group is standing up. You give them 2 minutes to find as many songs as they can. You point at the group. Those are timeless because you could do them throughout the year, right? Christmas season and love song season and all this type of stuff. But, some of my games are just like, outdated now. Like Braveheart, my favorite game.
I hate Braveheart.
Why do you hate Braveheart,
Because here's the thing, man, is I think I hate Kajabi Can too.
Oh, wow.
I remember my first time I show up at this church and it's like week 2 and they're like, let's play can, like we got to do it. Kid dislocates his shoulder. Week 1, pastor's kid. I'm like in the hospital. He's like, what are you thinking? Because some idiot tried to backflip over the can. And I'm like, Cody, why did you try to backflip over the can?
He went for it, bro.
Went for it.
He
I'm just like, but here's the thing. I would say like simple to excellent. Let's go like simple game, crazy game. So like simple game, list 5 or any like trivia game. How do you incorporate those things, right? The tempo, those things, and like a trivia game from like DYM or something like that, where it's like, hey, make it like quick. Hey, tempo. Yeah, 10, 9, 8, 7, and just throwing up a whiteboard. So whiteboard and some expos, pretty cheap. And then I would say like big games. One of my favorite big games to do is we play a game. I stole it from a summer camp I grew up at, and it's called Human Clue, okay? So if you got 25 to 45 minutes, Karston, we've all done this because I've done it here tons of times, but you get like 8 characters. So like, I'm Batman, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you got Batman who's chilling, and they're trying to figure out the who, what, where, when, why. And their small group is running around church asking Dora the Explorer. We have this intern here named Leans, and she did a phenomenal Dora the Explorer. She was like,
incredible.
Hola. You say, hola? And then she would like,
pause.
Great job.
That's awesome.
And so they would go down, and all you're trying to do is like, you would ask yes or no questions. Hey, did Colton steal the golden plunger?
Mm-hmm.
And they would answer yes. If that's correct, they'd answer no if that's incorrect, but in the right category, or they would say, I don't know if it's the wrong category.
Right.
And it's simple, but man, the kids being strategic, they're running around, you got jailers, but it's like, that's a creative game that took, and that's one of those big game nights. And then the simple game nights is just like, hey, last night we did guys versus girls, right? Sticky hand quarter. We did guys versus girls. You know what I mean? And like, especially in middle school.
But again, that's incentive, right?
Yeah.
Guys versus girls. Right?
Everything. You want bragging rights. You're going to go home and tell your mom, hey,
we destroyed
the girls tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like last night, the girls worked the boys.
Let's go.
The boys were just walking around with their tails, between their legs all night. They're sad.
Yeah.
And I think it's those things. So what would you guys say? Great, like small, quick game.
I'd say big one that comes to mind is Mythic Hunt. Right?
Whoa.
That's a big one we did, man. That was a great one.
Shout out Craig Olson, bro.
That was a great one, bro.
Or Cameron.
So, I think it was Cam, but phenomenal game where someone's on stage. They have these bow and arrows.
Yeah.
And through the tunnels of the worship center, that mythical characters are walking out. And it's slow, like round one, it's a slow character, and they're moving.
You have Jason Tweedy. I'm thinking the wrong game.
No, but Jason Tweedy was one. I remember, because we had Santa and his angry elf, and Vincent Vanasco's the angry elf, and then a kid, Lukey, he runs out of arrows, puts Vince in an arm bar.
He choked him out, bro. Got him good, man. But the whole idea was that these characters would come out and it'd speed up, and you got to shoot the arrows at him. Phenomenal game. Sound, fog machines coming out. Like, that was a massive game where, again, you don't really need an incentive for that because kids are just engaged. That's something you don't see often, right?
The terrible tyrannosaurs, and they're like, and that's Jurassic Park, dun, 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 like, and they come out, of the tunnel, and like kids are shooting arrows. That's a great game. Yeah,
great game.
Man. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Let's go, man.
I'm pumped up. I'm gonna go work on my games today, you guys. Hey, we're so glad you guys are here and joining us for the Bayside Students Podcast. We hope that you guys grew a little bit and got a little bit better, because like we believe around here, when one of us gets better, we all get better, and that's what we care about here at Bayside Students, is making the Big C Church better. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll see you guys back here soon for another way to have some great youth men.
Let's go, baby.
Amen, brother.